Happy Valentine's Day. So if you don't know, Valentine's Day is celebrated on February 14th. Typically it's a celebration of love, all different kinds of love, friendships, family, but typically the love that is celebrated the most is romantic love. So couples tend to go out to eat, or they give each other small gifts such as chocolates, flowers, things like that, to celebrate this day and to celebrate their love. So today we are going to discuss 5 different ways love can be expressed in the physical world to show somebody else that you love them and for someone else to feel that they are being loved. And then we can discuss the 3 major spiritual connections as well. So we're going to start with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major ways that we can express love to each other and that we can feel like we are genuinely loved and cared for by a romantic partner. Now, these are called love languages. And there's a book about love languages by Gary Chapman, and in it he discussed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ways that people typically will express love to each other, and the receiver of that form of expression, they have a certain style that they prefer that makes them feel like they genuinely are loved by that other person. So we will start with the first love language, which is words of affirmation. Words of affirmation. So those whose primary love language is words of affirmation typically enjoy words of encouragement from their partner. So, for example, maybe your partner notices you had a really rough day and they notice that you tried really hard to be positive that day and it just didn't work out well. And your partner sends you a little love by verbally expressing to you that they noticed how hard you tried today, that you did a good job, that having a bad day doesn't mean you're a failure, that it's normal, and that you went through it with resiliency and strength. They also, of course, enjoy words of affirmation, so just positive things that you notice about them. So it shows that their partner is paying attention to the other person. It shows that this person thinks of the other one, wants to verbally express how wonderful their partner is. They want to hear, typically I love you, things like that. However, you can also express words of affirmation in other ways. They don't just have to be verbal. So for example, You could potentially write some type of letter, little love note, something like that. Maybe write something nice on a little sticky note and stick it up for that person to read on the refrigerator or something, or at their bedside table or whatever it is, saying something positive about them, how much you think about them and care, and how well they're doing. This might leave them a little love note, because of course communication doesn't just have to be verbally expressed, it can also be written down. People who enjoy words of affirmation and feel like they're loved with words of affirmation may enjoy little surprise notes, letters, things like that strewn about the house for them to find to show that you care. Of course, because there's so many different ways to communicate, someone who enjoys words of affirmation might enjoy you expressing your love for them through music. Maybe you play music, maybe you sing, something like that. Maybe you can make them a little song to say how wonderful you think that person is and how much they mean to you. Maybe you can also send them music, so you could send them a song maybe that they love. If they had a hard day or something like that, you can play their favorite song. It shows that you're really paying attention to what they enjoy. You can also send maybe a song to them, or sing them a song, hum them a song that has beautiful lyrics that really express how you feel about them. Just some type of communication that says that you care, that you notice all the wonderful things that they do, and that your partner is not an unsung hero. You notice, and you're willing to tell them how much they mean to you. Another way, of course, you can express yourself is through some type of art. So maybe you make them a picture, you paint them something, make a little sculpture, you send them a picture of their favorite art piece, or a piece that really speaks about how you feel about them, what you think they are like. You can attach little words to the picture too if you want, expressing how you feel. Now please bear in mind, when someone has a particular love language, they feel loved when their partner expresses their love in this particular language. So naturally, if you use that love language in a negative way, it's going to hurt your person very deeply if they have this particular love language. For example, if someone who has the words of affirmation love language, if you use your words harshly instead of positively, you can really hurt your partner. So it kind of goes, all of these love languages, the opposite that's done is going to really hurt your partner, so you kind of have to keep that in mind. So that was the first love language, the first way that someone understands that you love them. The second love language is of service. So the second love language is acts of service. So we go from words to actions. So some people's love language, the one they speak, the one they understand, is acts of service. Now for this one, a person who has a love language that is acts of service, feels loved when you do something, their partner does something nice for them. So maybe something broke and you fixed it for them, or maybe you noticed their day has been really hard and you wanted to give them a little massage to help them relax. Maybe you draw them a little bubble bath or something to help them relax because you're noticing they have a certain need, or they do something all the time and you're going to take over it for them. Like if, for instance, you notice, they were working out or something like that and they're really tired, you could get them a water, preferably a full bottle of water. But it shows that you're paying attention to what they need and that you're willing to do something for them without being asked. So this is also a great way, someone who speaks this language or understands this language, it's good when their partner does something spontaneously, typically, for the other person, and also it doesn't have to be anything big. So any of these languages, any of these ways of expression don't have to be huge acts of anything. So even though it says acts of service, you don't necessarily have to do charity work for that person to feel like you care. It could be something as small as that person always does the laundry and they go home from work and the laundry's done because you did the laundry for them already, or you did the dishes for them, something like that. It could literally be something that small, but it's usually some small act of kindness that the partner will perform for their loved one to show you appreciate them, you understand how much work they put in, and that you're willing to assist them with it, and also to do little extra things for them too, such as giving them a little massage or something like that, and just to be kind and to show that you care. So that was the second love language. So the first was words of affirmation, and then we go to actions. The second one is acts of service. Now for the third love language, it is receiving, gifts. So the third love language is receiving gifts. So it almost goes in a progression. So we have words, we have actions, and then we have Tangible gifts. Something tangible. So those who speak and or understand the language of receiving gifts, naturally, this one's pretty obvious, but they enjoy receiving gifts. So from their partner, they want something tangible given to them by their partner. Look how cute that is. So when somebody gives a gift, and when they have the love language of receiving gifts, they don't just want any gift. All of these love languages, they have to be personalized, they have to be intentional, they have to really show that you're paying attention and that you care. So you can't just give someone, be like, oh look, I found this thing and I thought it was cute. I don't even know if you like these kind of animals, but here you go. That doesn't work. That's not the way to do it. But if you notice, maybe, I know you love alpaca things, little alpaca llamas. Not sure which one this is, but I saw it and I thought of you. And it goes perfectly with your llama alpaca collection. Something like that. That's a weird example, but that's the gist. So, kind of like this cutie right here. You give something special, right? This guy is gonna bring his pearl to his love. So it's something special. And it doesn't have to be a wealthy, rich gift. It doesn't have to be expensive. Sometimes a little bit goes a long way. Also, it's not that you cheap out on gifts either. It really is the thought that counts behind the gift. More than anything, that demonstrates clearly that you pay attention to your partner, what your partner enjoys, that you're thinking about them, and you're surprising them with little gifts every now and again, not just on birthdays or anniversaries, but just for no reason at all. I don't know if you've ever watched the movie Juwanna Mann, but in that movie, one person, her love language, one character in the movie, her love language was receiving gifts. She mentioned that it would be wonderful if her partner just gave her something just because it was Wednesday. Just for no reason else. It's just Wednesday and I wanted to give you a gift. And it's funny because the person who ends up with her listened to her, what she said, paid attention, and he did give her a gift just because it's Wednesday. Left her a little note about it. And it was really cute. So it really has to be something special and personalized for that person. And it really does help if it's more spontaneous than I asked you for something. Although, honestly, of course, if you ask for something and the person doesn't do it, that doesn't look very good either. But it's more the thought of, I'm thinking of you. I pay attention to what you care about, and I care enough about you to go get it. That's kind of how this one goes. So really it is intention that really matters, and paying attention. Like I said, it could be something small. Maybe your partner loves nature and you decided to give a little flower or something for your partner, or maybe it's a symbolic gift. Notice how this owl has the little dandelion, and typically you would blow on these and make a wish. So maybe if your partner was mentioning something about hoping for something to come true as a little joke / I love you gift, you can give them a little dandelion to blow, and maybe you both can have one and you can blow it together and wish for whatever it is you're wishing for. Just something really thoughtful. The gift has to be thoughtful, and it helps if it's spontaneous. So those are 3 of the 5 love languages. So the 4th love language is the fourth love language is So our fourth love language is quality time. So again, it goes, interestingly enough, in a progression. So it's kind of like, okay, we have words, we have actions, we have something tangible given, and now we have something less tangible given, but still just as important. So for those who speak and or understand the love language of quality time, enjoy time together with their loved one. So like with all the love languages, everything has to be intentional and personalized to express your love properly and for your partner to feel your genuine love. It has to be genuine, right? It has to come from a good place. So those who understand the love language, speak the love language of quality time, naturally enjoy time spent together with their partner. Now, like I said before, it doesn't have to be this grand thing. It literally could be you both sitting on the couch watching a movie together. It could be discussing a book together. Maybe that's what you enjoy. Or it could be going out on a little date randomly, having a little date night, going out to eat, something like that, doing something together. But the important part with quality time is the partner needs to be present in the now, needs to really listen to their partner, be in the moment with their partner, because if you're not present and aware, your partner is going to pick up on that and your quality time is going to go to crap. So you need actual quality. The quality of your time together needs to be good. You need good quality time together. That's how they're going to feel that you genuinely care. So you have to listen to them. So if they're talking to you, if your quality time is chit-chatting together, maybe about your day or something like that, you need to genuinely listen and be there for your partner, for them to really know that you care. However, you can also express quality time in other ways. So for example, quality time could be maybe you both like to travel and you like to go places and explore the world together or something like that, which is really beautiful. So it's kind of nice to spend some quality time together, traveling, exploring together, trying something new, maybe going to an amusement park together, theme park, going on a hiking trail, hike together, something where you're doing it together, go to the beach, and have a little beach day together. Whatever it is that you both enjoy doing, or your partner enjoys doing, it really shows you care. You could also maybe do something a little special and spontaneous. You could have a little picnic together with their favorite foods, favorite drinks, whatever it is. It could even be a picnic indoors, just something that brings you both together. So you have to be together, really present with each other, enjoying something together. Spending time together, talking, bonding again, you know, that kind of thing. Not letting the humdrum of life get in the way where there isn't anything special that happens, kind of thing. So yeah, that is the love language of quality time. Now for the final love language, it is the love language of physical touch. Physical touch. So once again, it kind of has that progression of words, actions, tangible, less tangible, but still important, and then bam, physical. So for those who express their love and understand the love language of physical touch. Now this one, usually the first thing that you think about with physical touch with romantic partners isn't necessarily how these people feel like they're loved all the time. I will explain. The first thing that probably pops in your head when you think of romantic love being a love language being physical love is probably some type of more hardcore kind of physical intimacy type thing. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't enjoy such things or that they don't feel loved when something like that happens with their partner, but it means that that's not the only way to express physical love, and it's also not always the most important way to express physical love. So for example, someone, like I said before, not everything has to be this grand gesture for love languages. Of course, they can be, but very often we get stuck in the day-to-day grind, right? And it feels good to know that someone thinks you're special, that someone really cares and will go out of their way to make you feel special and to show that they still love you, even when, times are tough, or it's just a random Wednesday, So something as small as holding hands, just being near each other, really helps. So it could even just be something simple as being physically next to each other and just touching a little bit. Like if you're side by side and your arms are together, or your partner leans on you or something like that, it can help you feel more important, feel more loved. There's also small gestures you can do, random things. So like we mentioned before with the acts of service, of course some of these love languages can kind of mesh. So for acts of service, we mentioned massage being one of the ways you can express an act of service to your loved one. But for physical touch, you could do that too. Give them a little shoulder rub or back massage, anything like that helps. You can also do something like playing with your partner's hair. It could be just something small. You could comb their hair for them, make a little spa day, just something that shows that you're physically present. But when you're physically touching someone in whatever way it is, you need to, once again, just like with quality time or with any of these, you need to be present with your partner. It needs to be special. It can't just be like, oh, how you doing? Give a little punch on the arm. Like that's probably not gonna do it. Unless that's an inside joke between you two or something like that. But for physical touch, it's as simple as literally your physical presence helps your partner know that you care. Just sitting side by side, arms touching. It could be maybe your hand at the small of your partner's back or something, hands on their shoulders, just something that shows I'm physically here and I care about you. You can give them a little squeeze on their shoulders, anything like that that shows that you care in a physical way, shows to this person that you love them. Now, with all 5 of these, there is none that is a love language that is greater than any other. It's just how people express and or receive love. Bear in mind, these are called love languages. So with a language, right, you're expressing something to someone else. So love language, these love languages, maybe one partner expresses love in one of these 5 ways, or maybe even a combination. But typically when we say it's your love language, we're saying the dominant love language. So there might be one of these 5 that really stand out to you as your primary way of expressing your love to your partner. But also bear in mind, a language, you communicate, but somebody needs to receive that information and understand it. So it's a two-way street, essentially. So your partner and yourself, you can express love in any one of these 5 ways, or in multiple, but of course, like I said, you'll probably have a dominant way of expressing your love to your partner. But naturally, you're going to have a love language that you understand. Like, if someone expresses it to you, it makes sense to you that you are loved, and it makes you feel genuinely loved and cared for by your partner. So your partner and you could actually have different love languages. So it's very important, if you really care about someone, to kind of pay attention to which form of expression really speaks to them, and also for them to understand what really speaks to you and shows that you both love and care for each other. So for example, maybe your partner enjoys words of affirmation, likes to be praised, likes to hear positive things, loves to hear that you love them, actually hear you say it. Potentially, maybe you as a partner, you don't feel comfortable expressing your love in this way. Maybe you're more of a gift giver or something like that. And your love language is receiving gifts. You like to express it that way, and you want it to be given to you back. But your partner likes the words, and you have trouble with words, for instance. And maybe your partner has trouble with receiving gifts because maybe they feel like they owe you or something like that, or they have some trauma maybe in their past with gifts, and they don't feel right about it, kind of thing. It's definitely something you have to communicate with your partner about, if need be, because if your love languages kind of clash like that and you don't feel comfortable expressing your love in a certain way, if you really care for someone, it's probably worth a try to learn how to speak their language, and for them to learn how to speak yours. And like I said, it can be spontaneous and random, and it doesn't have to be all the time, but just to show someone you care in the best way you can, express it in their primary love language, can go a long way. And the same thing for them to do it in the love language you understand as well. So yeah. So love language 1 was words of affirmation. Love language 2, acts of service. Love language 3, receiving gifts. Love language 4, quality time. And love language 5, physical touch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So those are the 5 major love languages. So those are more physical ways to express love to your partner and for you to feel loved by your partner. But what I wanted to go over with next are the 3 major spiritual connections. So we're going to go over those in just a bit. I'm going to get rid of our love languages here. So we're going to erase this. Excuse my dirty board, I don't know what happened there. Let me fix it. Okay. Alright, so we're going to go over the three main spiritual connections. Now, these are different relationships that you can have happen in your life. You may have experienced one or two of these, you may have experienced all three in your lifetime, or will in your lifetime. These don't necessarily have to be romantic, or at least one of them in particular doesn't have to be a romantic partnership, but because it's Valentine's Day, we're going to stick with the romantic partnerships. So we're going to discuss them in those terms. So because we're talking about spiritual connections, I have us a little rose quartz crystal for our heart chakras. And I'm going to place it over here to be with us today. Our three main types of spiritual connections, I will call them love labels. So love labels. They aren't necessarily called that. I think from what I've seen, they're usually called spiritual connections, spiritual relationships, or something along those lines. But I'm going to call them love labels. We have three types. The first type is Karmic. The second type is Soulmate. And the third kind of spiritual connection or love label is Twin Flame. Now, these kind of like the love languages go in a progression. So Karmic is kind of the lowest form of relationship in a sense. Soulmate is a level up, and Twin Flame is the highest level of romantic soul connection. So these are our three love labels, and we will go in order of each, and I'll explain a little bit about them. So for our karmic relationships, now these relationships do not have to be romantic. A karmic relationship is meant to teach you something, some type of lesson. So all of these love labels go by the idea that we are reincarnated, that our souls are reincarnated. So after we pass away, we are reincarnated, we are reborn into some other form. And each time our souls sign a contract. So the idea is that we sign contract with other people to learn certain lessons, to have our souls progress, and to help humanity in general, kind of like our whole universe, get better in some way, shape, or form, change in some way, shape, or form that's necessary for growth. So each time you reincarnate, your soul, in theory, is supposed to get stronger, essentially. So karmic relationships are meant to teach you some type of lesson. That's their main purpose. Now, karmic relationships, although they're meant to teach you things, they're usually not fun lessons. And karmic relationships can be pretty toxic. They don't have to be necessarily. Karma isn't always bad. We usually think of, oh, you got karma, it's a bad thing. Karma just means balance. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad lesson you're going to get from your karmic relationships. But very often it can be. They usually trigger you. These people trigger you in some way, shape, or form. A karmic romantic relationship is not a good relationship. It is not long lasting. So if, for instance, maybe you had a partner who was abusive or something like that, they could be potentially a karmic, teaching you self-esteem, self-worth, or how to stand up for yourself, or something like that. That doesn't mean that you deserve to be treated that way. It just means you met this person to teach you a lesson about something. What happens with karmics is once you are taught whatever lesson it is that you were supposed to learn from this particular person, the person usually leaves. So these relationships tend to be very short term. You don't want a karmic as your life partner at all, because once the lesson is learned, they're gone. And it's definitely not one of those things where you don't want to learn the lesson so they stick around. I don't recommend that at all. It is not good for you. It's not good for them. Even if you don't learn the lesson, it doesn't guarantee that this karmic is going to stick around. Most of the time, these karmics are short-term relationships. So even if you didn't learn the lesson, right? Maybe that the part of the lesson that that person was supposed to teach you ended, you learned enough, and they leave. And then someone else who's similar will show up, and you'll just meet the same kind of person over and over again until you figure out what it is you're supposed to learn from these interactions. So a karmic is not a good partner. You do not want a karmic as your life partner. So maybe there are some people, in this world, they try very hard to find love, and they just keep hitting a wall with love. They keep having these karmic relationships over and over and over again. It's kind of the same type of person maybe, and they keep meeting, different face, same game, that kind of thing. And it's one of those things where they have to do their best to learn whatever it is they're supposed to learn, so that these karmas can kind of fall away and they can find a higher relationship, such as a soulmate. Now, a soulmate, like I said, these relationships, these love labels are typically they're based on the idea that we reincarnate. And there's also this idea that we have soul tribes, so different types of souls that are kind of like a soul family, essentially. So a soulmate is someone who's from your same soul family. And when you meet a soulmate, you can have many soulmates, actually. You can have multiple. It doesn't have to be just like one person. It's a soul family, it's a soul tribe. So there's multiple of you, and you can meet them all over the world, really, realistically. But a soulmate is, when you meet them, they feel like home to you. They just, you vibe well with a soulmate. It's like, almost like you do speak the same language, you completely understand each other. It seems like you really get each other, you have a lot in common. So you feel very comfortable with this person. That doesn't mean that this person isn't going to trigger you and that these are like fairy tale type relationships. Doesn't mean you're not going to have struggles. We're human beings. We're going to have bad days and good days, and there's going to be struggles along the way, always. But a soulmate will usually understand because they're so in tune with you. Their soul is related to yours in a way, if you want to look at it that way. If that grosses you out, don't think of it that way. But essentially, you feel like best friends. You understand each other and you feel comfortable with this person. Now, a soulmate typically is for a greater purpose than just a karmic. So a karmic is just for like a little lesson, and then bloop, they can leave. Or you can have kind of carbon copies of that person until you get that lesson straightened out. But a soulmate, the lessons that you learn or the purpose of you being together is usually a bit more elevated than a karmic. So, for example, this isn't true in all cases. Just because you have a romantic partner doesn't mean you're going to have children together, unless you would like children together. But one of the reasons potentially you could have a soulmate and you could be romantically involved with a soulmate in this lifetime is to have children, to raise children together. So maybe your children are going to be very important members of society in some way, shape, or form. Of course, we're all important, but maybe there's something very special about you two specifically raising these children or a specific child. It could be something like that. It doesn't always have to be children, like I said, but this is just an example of maybe the purpose behind why you two are together in this lifetime. Now, the ultimate relationship when it comes to love labels, the most elevated love, is twin flames. Now, with a twin flame, typically what happens is a soulmate, like I said, is a member of your soul tribe. A twin flame is you. They are literally your other half. So, although every person should be as whole as they can within themselves, the idea of a twin flame is that at one point in existence, your one soul split into two. And then when you reincarnated, one of you went into one body and the other went into another body. So the soul is split, it's torn. You are the same exact thing. You are the same soul, but you are in different bodies experiencing different things. So what happens is typically twin flames, people who have twin flames will, especially in childhood, they'll feel like something's missing. So their heart kind of calls out to that other twin, to that other piece of their soul. Your souls communicate. A lot of people say twin flames can speak telepathically. They can speak on the astral plane. So maybe when you both are sleeping, you have dreams, or maybe the idea of an astral projection is that your souls leave your body temporarily, even though you're still alive, and your souls can meet in the astral plane, so in the spiritual realm, and then you go back into your bodies again, or maybe you dream of each other, something like that. Your soul recognizes your twin. It'll know your twin because you are the same person, but just in different bodies and experiencing different things. So when you're a child, especially, but even when you get older, your heart calls out for true love. You tend to really believe in the one for you. You're usually a one person kind of person, in the sense that you really feel like you need something deep. Your relationship needs to be deep. It needs to be real, and it needs to be meaningful and long term, and you usually pine after a true love. So maybe you're essentially a hopeless romantic. You love lovey-dovey movies and songs. Disney movies are your jam, that kind of stuff. The fairy tale ending is kind of what you're aiming for, or what you feel you need. A lot of the time, too, twin flames will feel like when they're separated, they'll feel like when they meet whoever their partner is going to be, that they're going to be rescued, that partner's going to save them, or maybe that they're going to save their partner, or that it goes both ways, or something like that. So that kind of ties in with the pining after being a hopeless romantic. Twin flames, though, when they do meet, if they do meet, so sometimes they don't meet in this particular lifetime, but very often with twin flames, they meet briefly, at brief periods, at least at first. And when they meet, it's like instant intensity. So they teach each other things. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they consciously are teaching the other person something. It's more they trigger each other in such a way that it causes each soul, each half of the soul to grow spiritually in some type of way, to heal. Very often twin flames tend to have rough childhoods. They tend to go through a lot. The twin flames typically go through what's called a twin flame journey, and it's not an easy journey. We're going to go into that a little bit more to help explain that. So, twin flames, the idea of twin flames too is that if they do end up going together in union, becoming lovers, getting married, something like that, becoming partners together, and they find each other, it's a big deal. The reason being, you only have one twin flame. So if you have a twin flame, you only have one, because you have half a soul, they have half the soul, and together you make one soul. One full soul, whole soul. It doesn't mean that you can't kind of be whole within yourself to a certain degree, like with anyone, but twin flames, they have to do a lot of work to build up their half of the soul enough. It's kind of like they're forming the half of the soul to make it fit perfectly with their partners so they can come together as one. So if one partner's soul isn't ready, isn't more developed than is less developed than the other soul, it's going to be hard for them to get into union properly. Twin flames, because they're more rare in the sense that it's going to be harder to find your twin flame. There's so many people in this world, but like I said, you pine after them. Your souls call out to each other. So divine timing factors a lot with twin flames. It can take a long time for twin flames to meet, and even if they do meet, they can meet in bursts, little bursts, and then they separate. The intensity of the relationship is very, very strong. The souls call out to each other a lot. So the twin flame journey is very difficult, but it's not impossible. So because it's so difficult and the souls have to build each other up, they have to build up so much, these people tend to be very high vibrational souls, and when they get into union, they tend to be very influential in the world. They do something important together. Their union is very beneficial to the world typically. So the twin flame journey is, when I looked into it, everyone kind of labels it differently, and they're like, oh, there's 7 or 6 steps to the journey, and they name it different things. But I'll kind of go over the gist of what the journey typically entails to give you an idea of the twin flame journey. So, like I said, typically with twin flames, they start out in life separate. Because they're two halves of a soul that got split and put into different bodies, there is something called a divine feminine and a divine masculine soul. Now that's energy. Divine masculine, divine feminine. Divine feminine, generally speaking, tends to be a receiver. Divine masculine tends to be more an action-oriented energy. A man doesn't necessarily need to be the divine masculine. A woman doesn't necessarily need to be the divine feminine. Although it can happen that way, that the woman is the divine feminine, the man's divine masculine, or whatever gender you're going for, but it's the energy that matters. The divine feminine, the divine masculine, coming together as one. The yin and the yang. Twin flames are the ultimate yin and yang, essentially. So very often they're split. They could even live in different parts of the world. They could be born completely far away from each other, and then someday maybe they just happen to somehow meet. That's pretty miraculous. So like I said, they usually end up separate in the beginning. So when they're children, especially if they're going through whatever they're going through in their own individual lives, especially if they're going through trauma or something really, they're having really difficult childhoods or something like that, because their souls are pining out for each other. They have a lot of heartbreak, a lot of heartache. They have a lot of pain being separate. Their soul wants to be one again. They feel like something's missing. That's why they look for the one, because they feel, even if it's just subconsciously, that something is missing. So they tend to experience a lot of heartbreak. These relationships take a lot of strength. So not only do they usually, both twins, go through rough childhoods, they don't necessarily have to, but these people get tested hard. And that doesn't mean that other people don't get tested too, and that life isn't difficult for everybody, because it definitely is. But these people, especially with love, they need a lot of strength to go through this twin flame journey, because it starts out rough and it periodically can get rougher too. But like I mentioned before, they pine for each other. They yearn for each other. They long for that special someone. They may daydream a lot about a special someone. Maybe they even have a specific personality in mind, or a specific look in mind, or something like that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the person you think a twin thinks they're going to end up with is the way their twin is going to be in reality. But that doesn't stop twins from dreaming about what it would be like to be with the one for them, that special someone. And what can happen is the twins will be separate at first, typically, and they may go through a lot of hardships in their own individual lives to build, and in theory, the purpose of that is to build each half of the soul up, to level them up, to make them higher quality souls. And once they get to a certain point, like in their soul contract, in theory, they signed a contract saying when they were going to meet again to help each soul's development and to help them get closer to union, or to help them get into union. So what can happen very often on and off is the twins will meet. They'll get a glimpse of each other. So they may meet by chance. If they lived in different parts of the world, one moved to where the twin was, and they didn't know they were twins, but then they met, and their eyes met, and then boom, instant love, instant connection. There's something there. Divine masculine typically will instantly recognize his feminine right off the bat. That doesn't mean that the divine feminine can't do the same, or that they both can't recognize each other to a certain degree, or feel that instant connection, even if they don't know each other well yet. It's literally the love at first sight kind of thing. That can happen with soulmates too. But with twin flames, the intensity of the connection is strong. Like I said, the whole time you were pining after each other. You were going through so much pain, and you were pining after each other for so long, and then all of a sudden you meet, and it's like, bam, that's for me. That's my person. That's who I want to end up with. And the twins may not recognize that right away either. They just may feel some sort of intensity, or they get really attracted to each other, maybe physically right away. They look at each other and they're just like, wow, that's a nice looking person, or something like that. Of course, be careful, tread lightly with that. Just because someone's physically attractive does not mean necessarily that they're your twin. However, there is some type of intensity. It's very, very intense with twins. And when they meet, they typically start to pine even more for each other. Their souls really call out, because their souls are like, hey, I recognize you. You're me. Which is really cute, but at the same time, it can get to an extreme. So when they recognize each other to some degree, that twin becomes their world. So each twin tends to pine after the other even more, and they may have been going through these challenges in their lives, and they're developing themselves individually as people, and then they stop working on themselves. In some cases they completely neglect themselves because their twin becomes their everything, and that's their focus now, because they met their twin. Their soul recognized, hey, that's you, that's me, you're me, and I want you back. So we can be one. But the issue with that is, with twin flames, their task essentially is to elevate themselves up. Each half is responsible for elevating their own souls, so that the souls, when they get united, are essentially perfect. They fit well together, they are whole. So they if they start getting into that obsession of, oh, that's my twin, I want that person really, 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 really badly, they could neglect. They're in danger of neglecting themselves and their own growth. And no matter which partnership you're in, you should never neglect your own growth. You should never stop learning and growing yourself, because you matter too. So just keep that in mind with whatever relationship you're in, romantic or otherwise. You should never lose yourself in another person to such a degree that you're neglecting your own needs and your own spiritual development and your own growth and healing. So like I said, if they had a really tough childhood, they have a lot of healing to do, and healing can take a long time, and it's difficult. Healing is tough. So especially like emotional or some type of trauma is difficult to heal. So if they're working on themselves and they're starting to heal, and then all of a sudden they neglect themselves, they might be pushed back a bit, and they have to work even harder to heal again, to get them in a good spot. Because what can happen with twins very often is, because you're the same person, you trigger each other quite a bit. So it's not all rainbows and butterflies with twin flames. Their relationship is, especially in the beginning, can be very, very difficult, unfortunately. They can have what's called a tower moment, like in the tarot. It means essentially that it seems like something catastrophic happens, like your whole world is turned upside down, and now you have to do something different. You have to figure out, you have to live differently than you used to. Maybe you think differently than you used to. Your twin usually will trigger certain aspects of yourself that you didn't notice, what's usually called your shadow self. So the parts of yourself that are either buried so deeply that they're kind of subconscious wounds or subconscious negative behaviors or patterns that we're in. Whatever triggers you, your twin will probably find that trigger and will trigger you. And they may not do it consciously, like purposely to hurt you. It literally is each twin, when they meet and then they can separate again and maybe meet again and then separate, and that a cycle. Each time they meet, they tend to trigger something in each other that brings to the other twin's attention, okay, you have been neglecting this part of yourself and you need to work on that, and I'm going to work on this, that kind of thing. So it's not necessarily that one twin is messed up and the other twin's good. It's usually one is more developed than the other, but they both need to grow. Typically, the divine feminine is more spiritually aware than the divine masculine. That is not always the case, but that tends to be the case very often. So divine feminine will be more ready for union, or feel like she's more ready for union faster than the divine masculine in most cases. So what happens with these kind of triggerings and the meeting of the twins, especially for the first time, there's something very famously called the runner-chaser relationship. So what usually happens is, when they meet, the twins one twin will be the chaser, and one twin will be the runner, and they can switch roles at different periods of time. So because the relationship and the meeting of the souls is so intense, one person typically will run. It's so intense, it's overwhelming, and it's frightening, especially when the other twin shows you what you need to work on that you've been neglecting, you've been running away from because it's scary, or it's really difficult to face a hard truth about yourself, or trauma, something you need to heal, anything that's triggering, and that person's gonna run. And the other person, usually the one who's more aware at that time, will be the chaser, because they're ready. They're like, I'm ready to be with you, be with me, and they run after the twin, and the other twin's whoop, and this one's going, hey, wait wait for me. The divine feminine, like I said, typically tends to be more spiritually aware than the divine masculine. That is not always the case, but if that is the case, she's the one who typically will be the chaser, especially in the beginning when they first meet. She's the one who runs. It's like, look, I did all this work on myself, I'm ready for union. And then the divine masculine's like, nope, I'm going that way. And she's gonna be running, and they're running in circles. But what can happen is, because they meet and then sometimes they separate because it's so intense, and the runner chaser relationship can happen even when they're apart. Like I mentioned before, it's a spiritual connection. They're connected in such a deep, deep way that even when they're separate, they're together in some fashion. So the runner-chaser relationship can happen even when they're separated. So for example, if they met for the first time, and they're like, whoa, who are you? That kind of thing. And the runner-chaser, it gets intense, and the runner-chaser relationship begins. One's running, the other one's chasing. Well, if they separate for whatever reason, maybe they were coworkers or something, and one left the job. Whatever it is, they left physically, they left each other for a while. They separated in some way. Or even maybe they even got together romantically, and then, it was so intense. One was running, one was chasing, and boop, they split. Whatever the case may be, after that split, the runner and chaser relationship can still occur. So, for example, like I mentioned before, if that person becomes their whole world, the chaser may neglect their own spiritual growth or their own growth as a person, pining after and daydreaming about and thinking about that other person all the time. The runner may do the same, thinking about that person all the time, or maybe trying to drown themselves in work or something like that to get their mind off of the chaser, off of their twin. And they can flip-flop too, so maybe they'll meet again or something like that. And again, the relationship's really intense because you guys are one soul. You are the same. But you had different experiences, and you kind of need to get to that level where you can meet again and be in union. So the runner-chaser can change. So maybe this time, maybe the divine feminine, for instance, was working on herself. And I'll just say herself for simplicity's sake. It doesn't have to be a woman. But the divine feminine was working on herself. And she got to this point where she's comfortable, but at the same time she knows she needs to work on it still. So if they meet again, then the divine feminine may be the runner now, and the divine masculine may be the chaser, because now she feels, okay, but I need to do this. I can't be with you right now because you're too intense and you're gonna distract me. I need to go do this. And he maybe the divine masculine is like, well, I'm in a good place, I want you now. That kind of thing. So the runner-chaser relationship can happen very often, even over years, for twin flames. And that on again, off again type thing can happen. And don't confuse that with karmic, because a karmic is short term and is not good for you in the long term. A twin flame is very different, and the intensity of a twin flame relationship is a bit different as well. When people think of twin flames, typically they think of the runner-chaser relationship, because that's what happens so often because of the intensity of the relationship. It's just that intense. But what's interesting just like twins in real life, in the physical world, as in people who are born twins, right? Siblings. In the sense of siblings, it's funny, they kind of have that spiritual connection too, and it's like one can finish the other one's sentences, that kind of thing. So in a twin flame romantic relationship, it's very similar. So because they're both halves of the same whole, another very telltale sign and very common is when people think of twin flames, they think of mirroring. So you and your twin mirror each other, whether together or apart. So for example, if you're apart, let's say, and you don't even know that you're mirroring each other, you could be mirroring each other. Let's say, for example, you're going about your day and you're like, I'm having a good day, this is a good day, and then like nothing's going wrong, nothing in your life is wrong, like everything is fine, you feel good, and then all of a sudden you get this sudden burst of like anger out of nowhere, and you're just like, huh? Like you're home, you didn't go anywhere, you didn't like walk into someone's gunk or energetic gunk or whatever, like it literally is just you were chilling, hanging out, and all of a sudden now you're mad and you're like, what the frick happened? You could potentially, don't always blame all your emotions on your twin, but you could potentially be picking up on your twin. So maybe your twin's having a bad day and their anger is really intense and it kind of almost leaks to you. So you both are so linked, even when you're apart, even if you never end up in this lifetime with your twin, you both are linked no matter what. That's the comforting part about twin flames too, is you're always together. It doesn't feel like it when you're not physically together, but you are together. You are one. Literally, you're one. So you mirror each other like that. So maybe you even have similar thoughts. Maybe when you're together, you can finish each other's sentences because you are pretty much you're the same person. At least your soul, energetically and spiritually, you're the same. So you can think similarly. That doesn't mean that your twin, just like sibling twins, right? It doesn't mean that your personality is like 100% the same. You're the same soul, but you're having different experiences. So and especially if your twin is from a different country, for instance, or from a different neighborhood, whatever it is, maybe they're a different ethnicity than you or something like that, you have different cultural ideas, right? Or you have different love languages maybe, right? You understand each other very well, but at the same time, you are different people. Physically, you're physically different. You're in different bodies. So you're going to be different to a certain degree. Your twin grew up in a different environment than you in some way, shape, or form. You went through different experiences. But it's interesting because each soul is supposed to experience whatever they're supposed to experience. So when they come together, you have all those experiences and you share them with each other. So you both legitimately are twins in the sense that you mirror each other. To a certain degree, you could have similar thoughts, feelings all at once, random feelings that pop up, just maybe your twin experiencing something. Maybe you both have the same idea at the same time. You have the same song stuck in your head. Whatever it is, you both mirror each other. So another thing with mirroring, because like I mentioned, you trigger each other to a certain degree, which, bear in mind, triggering does not mean that you're a karmic and you're not you shouldn't be abusive to each other. That's not what I mean by triggering. Triggering is more, it's showing you your shadow side. It's showing something about yourself that you don't want to face, that you don't feel strong enough to face, or that it's hard to face and you're just kind of like, not today. Something like that. Or maybe that you're not even consciously aware of. You stuff it down so deep you don't even notice you do it. So, for example, your twin, maybe your twin is, when you meet your twin, that person, although you have that intensity and you really care about this person for whatever reason, maybe you don't even know why, they matter to you somehow. But that doesn't mean that you're not gonna like certain aspects of your twin, because we're human and you're gonna have bad days, you're gonna feel that anger. It's not gonna be all, fun games all the time, especially with the tough twin flame journey ahead. And even if you have union and it's wonderful, there's still going to be times where you trigger each other and you show aspects of each other that you didn't even know you had, because you mirror each other too. If your twin, say for instance, let's just make up an example. So if your twin is very boastful, let's say, like has a big head or something like that, maybe you hate that and you're like, why does this person do that? Like, they did one small thing right, you praised them, and then they went their head just swelled in size, and you're like, okay, why? But bear in mind, obviously, since you're in two different physical bodies and you're going through different experiences, your twin doesn't always show you, for example, in their personality, what you need to work on yourself. But please do bear in mind that they might be. So maybe that person has a big head at times. Maybe they'll grow out of it. Maybe one of the triggers is they see that in you, and you don't see it in you, and you see it in them, and you're both looking at each other like, why are they like that? But you're both doing it to maybe a greater or lesser degree for different things, whatever it is. You both see it. You may not say it to each other, but because you see it, you eventually, especially when you're apart, you get more time to look at yourself. Even though they are you too, you look at your physical self and what you in your life, what you need to do to fix or to improve yourself with your personality, with the way you do things. So the separation of twins, it seems cruel, and it definitely feels cruel for sure. I can imagine that would feel terrible, being separate from your twin. But the separation's necessary. So it's all about perspective, right? So separation seems like a bad thing, but ultimately it's meant to kind of stop both of you from obsessing over each other too much. So obviously, of course, you can pine for each other separately and really desperately want to be together again, and am I ever going to see them again? That kind of awful feeling of, am I ever going to see you again? Are we ever going to get together? Is this ever going to happen in this lifetime? Is this ever going to be physical? Are we ever going to get married? Are we ever going to have children? Whatever it is, whatever you want to do. Of course, that feels terrible. That's awful. But the good side to that is, after a while, you kind of realize, okay, I need to kind of get on with my life to a certain degree. And it doesn't necessarily mean you forget your twin, because your soul will never forget your full soul. It will never forget it. You are always together. You just don't know it, right? You may not know it consciously, but you're always together. Even if you're not together physically at this time, it doesn't mean you'll be separate forever. But those periods of separation help you focus on you and on your half of the soul and improving your half, and the divine masculine, divine feminine working on each half separately, so that they can come together in perfect union after. Now, with twin flames, it's such a hard journey. A lot at least it feels like it's very much based on fate. But what's beautiful about twin flames, especially if the twins are very far apart, they were born in completely different countries, born in completely different places, it's so unlikely they'll ever meet. It's amazing how fate can play a role, and all of a sudden they do meet. It's like a little miracle, right? That's really amazing. But fate tends to play a big role. Destiny kind of plays a big role in twin flame relationship. Doesn't mean that the twins don't have willpower, that they don't have control to a certain degree, but the divine tends to play quite a bit of a role, and perfect timing is huge with twin flames as well. When the time is right, they will meet, essentially. So naturally, each twin's gonna need a lot of patience. Patience is hard, especially when you're pining for each other, or you're like, maybe one or both of the twins know, like, this person is meant for me. This is my person. This is the one. You know, if you believe in that, like, this is the one for me. And it's annoying when you're separate. Like, and it's understandable. It's human nature, right? You're like, this is for me. Why aren't you giving it to me? It's kind of like a child at Christmas. Like, I know that's my gift. Why can't I have it now? You know? Or like, that's the dessert. That's my dessert. Why can't I have it before I have dinner? That kind of, like, that's a really small example for something serious like this, but that's kind of the feeling. So patience is definitely called for in the twin flame journey. But the good part is each twin tends to be divinely protected. Twin flames have a huge mission in the world, especially when they are together. They are meant to do something important. And that doesn't mean that other people aren't meant to do important things. But twin flames, when they're together, they tend to really help the world progress in some way, especially maybe in a spiritual sense, whatever way it is for those particular twins. So they tend to be very divinely protected. Now, that doesn't mean other people aren't divinely protected. I believe that everyone is protected, or at least I like to think that. But with twin flames, because it's so painful as a journey, it can feel like they're not protected, but you're protected. Both twins are protected. You're important. Everyone is important, but twin flames may feel abandoned. They may feel so lonely without their twin, especially in the beginning when they don't even meet their twin yet. They just feel like they're looking for something they can't find. It feels impossible, you know? And it's important to remember that you are protected and that someone cares and your twin is with you, even if they're not physically with you yet. So there's hope. There's hope. Now, what's important, very important about twin flame relationships, any relationship, this is the rune for partnership. I believe I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think it's Jibo or Gebu. I'm not sure how to say it. But this is the partnership rune. And this rune essentially says that in a partnership, especially in any partnership, but especially a romantic partnership, you should never lose yourself in the partnership. Now, what that means is, that doesn't mean that you can't really be present with each other. That's good. It's don't neglect yourself and your needs, because you're important as a person too. So you can't neglect yourself like that. So like this ex, right? They're each separate, but they come together at this point. So they make a whole, right? But they're each their own separate part. And for twin flames, it's especially important because it's so easy to lose yourself in your twin, or to care only about your twin and what your twin needs and what you want to do, how you want to help your twin. Maybe if one is more spiritually developed than the other, that one that's more spiritually developed wants to help the other twin rise up a little more, help them level up their soul, kind of thing. But they shouldn't neglect themselves, because they need to learn too. Even though you're higher up, you can always improve. So they should never neglect themselves. Either one should never get lost in the other to the point where they're neglecting their own selves. So the divine masculine needs to be his own emperor. He needs to step into his own power as the divine masculine energy. And the divine feminine needs to step into her own power as the empress, as her own divine feminine power. So that these two, divine masculine, divine feminine, to come together in the perfect yin-yang relationship. But they have to do it separately. They have to be their own separate person in order for the union to happen, in order for them to fit perfectly together in this lifetime. In every partnership, people need to be individuals in order to have a good union together. It doesn't mean that when you're together you don't rub off on each other, you know what I mean? That's gonna happen naturally, but you need to be strong, especially for twins. They need to be strong within themselves and know they're worthy of love before they can be in union. Like I mentioned before, because they may have rough childhoods, for instance, they may have trauma around intimacy and feeling worthy of love and feeling worthy of good things. So they kind of need to work through those issues in order for them to accept the love and to kind of break that runner chaser relationship going on, in order to break that cycle. So each twin needs to heal themselves. They need to be their own healer. Now that doesn't mean they can't have help. It doesn't mean that one twin can't help the other twin. It doesn't mean that they can't meet other people in their lives who can help them heal. But it means they need to work on their healing. They need to work on themselves, especially spiritually. They need to heal emotional wounds, whatever is holding them back, especially in feeling worthy of love and expressing love. They need to work through those blockages in order to attract their twin and to level themselves up, to be with their twin, and to help themselves in their own soul development. And like I said, it's always good to keep in mind that you're protected. So not everyone wants to talk to their angels or believe in angels or anything like that, but it's good to have purpose in your life, and for anybody to keep you going, you know? Like I said, you don't want to lose, especially for twin flames, you don't want to lose yourself in your twin. Obviously you should care about your twin, and you're going to care about your twin. I feel like there's really no way you can't care about your twin. You're gonna care about your twin. Your twin is you. But at the same time, bear in mind that you have to love you, because if you don't love your half, you can't love the other half unconditionally. So, like I said, with that example of boastfulness, right? If you see that in your partner and you're a twin, and you're like, oof, what up with the big head? Why is your head so big? What's going on? So maybe the boastfulness is what really triggers you, and you don't recognize it within yourself, and or you do recognize it, but you don't want to work on yourself in that aspect. It's hard to find, as a human being, right? If something's really triggering, it's hard to find the love there. It doesn't mean that the love isn't there. It's just, it's more easy to alienate your partner when they get big-headed or whatever, and it triggers you, and you're like, oh, and then you lash out, right? You may act out of conditioned thinking without trying to be consciously aware of how you react to those triggers, without fixing it within yourself. It's harder to love that aspect of that person. Now, obviously, it's hard to love negative aspects of personalities anyway, and negative emotions, but if you don't work on something yourself, it's going to be harder to love your partner unconditionally, because if you recognize, okay, I do that too, you get more understanding. You can typically get more understanding, and you feel more understanding and compassion for the other person, because you see where they're coming from, because you do the same thing, right? You recognize in yourself, I do that too. So when, they get big-headed, you praise them or something, and then, oof, their head swells. Maybe you'll handle that a little differently, but you still love your twin. You'll always love your twin, but you're less likely to, cause that runner-chaser relationship to happen again, that cycle. And you're able to have a better union with your partner when you learn to love each other and yourselves unconditionally, because remember, you're the same soul. So you have to love yourself to unconditionally, to love your twin unconditionally. So it helps if you have guidance in some way, shape, or form. It does help to talk to someone about something like this, or to feel like you are cared for even when it's tough or when you're separate from your twin, to know your twin's always there with you, and that it's good to have that level of trust in the universe, which is super hard, but it is important to trust that the universe has your back, the universe cares about you, universe, God, whatever you believe in. Even if you don't believe in anything, it's good to feel like you're important, that things are going to be okay, and that things are okay. So it's good to keep in mind, especially during hard times, when this journey gets really rough. But what tends to happen is the run and chase of relationship usually is a cycle. So you'll run and chase, and it switches. And there's just a lot of running and chasing going on. Maybe you meet and then you separate, you meet and then you separate, meet and you separate, you're pining for each other, your souls are calling to each other, like, and it's just a lot. It's intense. Usually, kind of like with anything, if you suffer enough, we tend as people to give up after a while. Now, I'm not saying despair and go into a spiraling depression over your twin. What I'm saying is, what helps a lot with twin flames in particular is to get this feeling of release, as in, it doesn't mean you give up on your twin or you give up on love. It doesn't mean you give up on love. It just means you accept, okay, we're meant to be apart physically right now. And you kind of accept, okay, we're always together. And it feels good knowing, they're always with me. My twin is always with me. So it helps you accept what's happening in your life. Being in the present moment and accepting, okay, right now, we're separate physically. That doesn't mean we're going to be separate forever. We're not going to be physically separate forever. But for right now, I need to focus on me, and I accept this. So you kind of take on the mission of, okay, I'm going to make my half awesome, and your half is going to be awesome, and we're going to be together. So that release, kind of with anything in life really, release and kind of going with the flow helps. Because as much as we think, we have this tendency as people to be a little combative, and we're like, oh, if I keep fighting and I keep persevering, if I keep hitting this wall, it's gonna break, it's gonna break. I'm gonna get through to the other side. There was probably a door there, you know what I mean? And like, if you went with the flow, it would have showed you the door. You wouldn't have to break a wall. So just to give you a weird example, but like with anything in life, it kind of helps to go with the flow to a certain degree. It doesn't mean you shouldn't persevere, shouldn't try, and it is important to work on yourself. But there's a point in your life where you're literally butting your head against a wall, and that wall's not breaking, and you're just like, I don't know what to do. And after a while, you kind of just, okay, I accept this. And then you look up and there's a door, and the door is open and you can walk through and your path is clear. You know what I mean? So that release really helps, especially in twin flame relationships. Okay? So it's good to kind of find your inner Buddha, your inner peace, kind of at peace with yourself, knowing I am important too. Although I love my twin very, very much, I love myself too. I'm at peace with whatever happens. We're gonna be fine. We're fine. I'm fine. I am a smiling Buddha. I'm happy. And you kind of step into your own power, and when you do that, you feel so much more confident in yourself. And bear in mind, we're people, so there's gonna be ups and downs, always. And everything's in balance, right? Everything's a little scale. So there's gonna be ups and downs. Don't beat yourself up if you have a bad day. It happens. It's gonna happen. It happens to us all. It's not a big deal. It's more, it really is in your reaction and your perspective and how you handle things and how you try to learn from them. So once you kind of reach that acceptance stage and you start working on yourself and kind of going with the flow and seeing where life takes you, and being willing to take actions when you feel you have to take an action, and solving your problems as they arise instead of running from them, that kind of thing, you're stepping into yourself and you're really getting to know yourself, and you get so much happiness from that. When that happens and you kind of reach that really like sweet spot, especially in a twin flame relationship, that usually means that you and your twin are finally gonna be in union. You're finally physically going to be in union. Remember, you're always spiritually in union. Always. You are the same soul. You are. You are the halves of each other. You are the same soul. You're always together. And you always meet each other. In the astral plane, you're always together. Always together. Which is comforting. But it is nice to be together physically in this lifetime. I totally get it, because otherwise you're going to be pining for each other. So even if, for example, you met your twin, and you're like, this is the one for me. Like, why isn't it working? And it may not be that you made a mistake. It may not be that you're not ready for union yourself, but maybe your partner's not ready yet, or it's just not the right timing. That's where the fate kind of falls into place. So just because you don't end up physically with your twin doesn't mean you won't find a soulmate in this lifetime, and you'll be with a soulmate, and your soulmate will teach you certain lessons too. You'll teach your soulmate certain lessons. You'll grow even more, and your soulmate will grow even more. And then maybe, if you believe in it, if you reincarnate again, you'll be ready for a twin flame reunion. Your twin will be ready for you. You both will be in union in the next lifetime. I know that's not comforting in this lifetime to hear. That's rough. I get that 100%. But like I said, you really are together always. So that is the comforting part. But if you kind of find the healing within yourself, and you do your best to heal yourself, and not just so you can be together. It is tempting. Once you learn about the twin flame journey and you're aware of it, it's tempting to do it just for your twin's sake, and just so you can end up with your twin physically in the physical plane. I get that. That's a totally human thing too. You want to end up together, and that's completely understandable. It's not wrong to want to be with your twin, to want to be whole together. But you can be whole in your half separately before you get together, and you should always do it for yourself too. So once you kind of get to that point, if the stars align, you can finally end up with your twin in a beautiful yin-yang synchronized union. Beautiful. With your cups full of love, hearts full of love for yourself, for each other. You can finally be in union in whatever way that means for you both. Now, like I said, once you're in union, you two tend to be leaders. You tend to be so important for the world. And like I said, everybody's important. So please, even if your life feels so small, you always help somebody. You always matter to somebody. Always. You always matter to someone. You should always matter to yourself too, but someone else always cares. Always. That's always the case. It's not just twins that matter, but twins kind of have a mission, a special mission together, and it typically tends to be a worldly mission or a kind of bigger picture mission in a more obvious way. So they tend to be leaders together, maybe. And it could be something seemingly small, but that makes a big impact. So for example, maybe they start a business together and they're business partners as well as lovers, romantic partners. So maybe they build a business, or they make a charity, or they do something that's really important together that they're meant to do with each other. twins will naturally want to support each other anyway because they are the same person. And once they reach that I love me stage and I love you unconditionally kind of stage, you're naturally going to want to help each other because you want to help yourselves too. It goes both ways. And you should always keep yourself in mind as well. So they tend to be very important for the world. Now, that is our twin flame journey. That was a long explanation of the twin flame journey. But that's kind of the gist. It doesn't mean it happens that way exactly, like I said, but it tends to have that kind of pattern, especially the runner chaser and the mirroring tend to happen a lot. And the fact that each twin separately needs to focus on themselves before they can be in union tends to be a big thing. Spiritual development and improving themselves needs to happen. So it's kind of better. That's kind of why the separation happens, like I said, to give them time to focus on themselves, so that once they're you're never done improving yourself, but when they're at that sweet spot of they improve themselves enough to the point where they can be together and work on whatever their mission is in this lifetime, whatever they're supposed to do together, whatever their purpose together is supposed to be, they will eventually come together because they've already done the legwork. Both of them have done the work. Both of them have worked really hard and went through a lot to get to the level where they can actually finally meet in physical union with each other. And it doesn't mean to say that soulmates don't work hard, that even karmics don't work hard. Even if you're single, it doesn't mean you don't matter. Just even if you don't end up in union with someone, or you don't want to end up in union with someone, doesn't mean you don't matter. I'm just throwing that out there. But I also wanted to point out something. This is random. My brain's everywhere. I'm sorry. If, for example, let's say you got married you found a soulmate, right? And it may not always be clear, like, who's a soulmate versus a twin flame right away. I feel like it's a kind of time will tell type of deal. We all kind of bop around not knowing what's going on, right? We're all learning. So you may end up with your soulmate, right? Maybe you get married to your soulmate and you're like, oh, I love this person, blah, blah, blah. And that's wonderful. But maybe you run into your twin flame. You happen to be a twin flame and you didn't know it consciously. Maybe you never even heard of these love labels before or anything like that, but you met your twin and now your soul is pining for your twin, but you're married already. I also read this somewhere. The person who wrote that blog that I read didn't advise that you leave your soulmate for your twin flame. Now that sounds wrong. Like, why wouldn't you be with your twin flame? Because that's your other half. I get that. Keep in mind, every situation's individual, so you make your own decisions. Even if you're a soulmate, right, you still have a huge bond. You still have a very deep bond. It's still good. You know what I mean? Like, if you end up with a karmic, they're probably toxic for you. Maybe they're abusive or something. You need to get out of there, that kind of thing. That I get. And I encourage you to leave something that's bad for you. But a soulmate isn't bad for you. Or isn't necessarily bad for you. A soulmate is part of your soul tribe, so part of your soul family. So they're still important. They still feel good to you. If you feel good with your soulmate, it's awful if you just leave them for your twin flame. Also, bear in mind, maybe in this lifetime, you're not ready, or your twin aren't ready for union quite yet. Maybe in your soul contract, you have a soul contract with your soulmate. And you're going to be with your soulmate for whatever reason. Maybe you're going to have children, or maybe you're going to have a business together, or maybe you're just meant to be together and your love really helps the world, right? And you're happy together. So there's no point in breaking up a marriage or a relationship for your twin flame just because you found your twin flame. So obviously, a twin flame is very important. It's a very important relationship, and it's a level up from the soulmate, right? But if you've already committed to a soulmate, it's probably best, generally speaking, to stay with your soulmate. Obviously, every situation is different. You make your own decision, they make their own decision. That's just a little asterisk, you know, something to keep in mind, just in case that comes up. But it's your life, you live it as you wish. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Another thing I want to throw out there, like with anything in life, you kind of don't want to put yourself in a box. So what I mean by that is, even though these are love labels, these are different types of soul connections, it doesn't mean that you go with someone, right? Or you have a really intense feeling when you first meet someone and you're like, bam, that's my twin. You know, like immediately, that's a twin. That may not be the case. And it's it's good to keep these things in mind. Like, knowledge helps a lot. Being aware of things helps a lot. But it shouldn't dominate you to the point where you lose focus of love, you know? Like, you shouldn't, and free will, and keeping in mind that we're human beings. So, for example, if maybe you met your twin, and you know about twin flames, and you know this is your twin, like that's your twin, but your twin, it's not the right time, or your twin's not ready yet. You don't go up to your twin and you're like, you're my twin flame, why aren't you with me right now? You know, don't pigeon. I would just, you do what you want, but I recommend trying not to pigeonhole yourself into the labels and to get too caught up in the labels themselves and thinking, okay, even if you're in a twin flame relationship and you're going to end up in union together, which is beautiful, you don't have to think, okay, dang, we're going to go through a lot of pain in this journey. We're going to go through all this runner chaser, and we're going to split, and oh man, when are we going to split? You're, having the anxiety of, oh God, we're going to split, aren't we? We're going to run and chase again. And I'm going to feel your crap from a distance again. That kind of stuff. You don't have to pigeonhole yourself like that. It doesn't, everyone's different. Everyone's situation is different. Everyone's relationship is different. And the way you handle relationships is different. And every person has their own willpower and their own beliefs. So just keep that in mind when it comes to love labels, okay? It is your life. Do as you see fit, what feels best for you in the moment. Same thing with your partner, but also try to kind of keep in mind everyone has their own will. So that acceptance, that letting go, and just kind of letting everyone have their own will to do what they need to do for them and what they think they need to do for them is important. That kind of acceptance of, okay, you're at that level or at that point in your life and you want to do this. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to go do this. Playing well in the sandbox, as one of my teachers used to say. Those are the 3 major love connections, spiritual connections, or love labels, as I like to call them. And those were the 5 major love languages that we went over. So we went over the love languages and the love labels. So, of course, it wouldn't be Valentine's Day if I didn't give you a little gift. I have chocolates to give to you. So these are for you. So whether you enjoy gifts or not, I don't know, but I gave it to you anyway. So happy Valentine's Day if you celebrate, even if you don't. I hope you have a wonderful day anyway, and that maybe you learned something, or at the very least you enjoyed hearing about the love languages and the love labels. So thank you so much for spending time with me, for being here. Thank you so